Venezuela has entered one of the most dramatic political moments in its modern history. In the early hours of January 3, US forces carried out a brazen military operation in Caracas, Venezuela's capital, capturing Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro along with his wife and flying them out to the US aboard the USS Iwo Jima after a relentless bombing campaign of military and civilian targets in the city. Within hours, Washington announced that Maduro and his wife would face narco-terrorism related charges in New York, as per US law. This is the most direct US intervention in South America since the 1989 US invasion of Panama. US President Donald Trump described it as a decisive strike that, quote, rendered Venezuela's military powerless, end quote, and claimed the United States would now, quote, run Venezuela temporarily, end quote, until what he called a safe and proper transition was possible.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
He also claimed that US-backed Nobel laureate Maria Corina Machado didn't have, quote, support or respect to run the country. Instead, he touted Vice President Delcy Rodriguez as the next leader of Venezuela. As explosions rocked parts of Caracas and airspace across the Caribbean was shut down, Venezuela's institutions moved quickly to respond. On January 4, Venezuela's Supreme Court ordered Vice President Delcy Rodriguez to assume charge as interim president, citing a forced absence of Nicolás Maduro. The court said that the move was necessary to ensure administrative continuity, preserve sovereignty, and defend the Venezuelan state. But the political messaging from Caracas has been defiant. Speaking on state television, Delcy Rodriguez demanded Maduro's immediate release, calling him Venezuela's only legitimate president and accusing the United States of carrying out an illegal act of aggression. She insisted that the country would defend itself diplomatically and politically even as she steps into the role of acting head of state. The international reaction to these series of events has been sharply divided. Russia, China, Cuba, and several Latin American countries have condemned the US action as a violation of international law and national sovereignty. The United Nations Secretary General warned that the operation sets a dangerous precedent. Meanwhile, the European Union expressed concern, urging restraint even as it reiterated that Maduro lacked democratic legitimacy. India so far has advised citizens to avoid all non-essential travel to Venezuela. Supporters of the US move, including Israel and some US allies, have framed the capture of Maduro as a blow against authoritarianism and organized crime. Venezuelan opposition figures, especially Nobel laureate Maria Machado, declared that the, quote, hour of freedom, end quote, had arrived and called for an immediate political transition. Yet serious legal questions remain unanswered. Legal scholars have pointed out that the United States does not have an extradition treaty with Venezuela, raising doubts about the legality of seizing a sitting head of state without international authorization. Critics argue that the operation resembles past US interventions in Latin America that destabilized regions rather than resolving crisis. Beyond politics, the economic stakes are enormous. President Trump has openly stated that major US oil companies will now enter Venezuela, home to some of the world's largest proven oil reserves. While Washington says its embargo on Venezuelan oil remains in place for now, the message is clear. Venezuela's energy sector will be central to whatever comes next. As of now, Venezuela stands at a crossroads. A detained president in US custody, an interim leader appointed by the Supreme Court, a powerful foreign military presence shaping the future of a foreign nation. Whether this moment leads to democratic transition, prolonged instability, or a new geopolitical confrontation in Latin America will depend on what happens next in Caracas, in Washington, and at the United Nations. For now, one thing is certain: Venezuela's crisis has entered uncharted territory.